Hi, Manna family. We're studying the lives of everyday people in the Bible. Today we're looking at the story of a woman named Abigail, and her story is told in 1 Samuel 25. Let me set the context for you. God has chosen David to succeed Saul as king over Israel. Saul is, as you remember, quite paranoid and tries to kill David, so David hides out in the southern desert of Israel. David and his band of 600 men have been protecting the flocks of a very rich and a very evil man named Nabal. Now, in that area, if you didn't protect your flocks and herds, bandits would kill your shepherds and steal your sheep and your goats. When Nabal had his annual sheep shearing festival, David sends messengers to Nabal and asks if he would share food from his feast as payment for their services of protection. Nabal insults them and refuses to give them anything. David becomes furious and promises to kill every male in Nabal's household. 1 Samuel 25 gives us the context. In verse 3 it says, "Now the man's name was Nabal, and his wife's name was Abigail. And the woman was intelligent and beautiful in appearance, but the man was harsh and evil in his dealings, and he was a Calebite." Kind of reminds you of Beauty and the Beast. It must have been an arranged marriage. Abigail, this beautiful and intelligent woman, has gotten word of David's goodness and also heard about her husband's insulting behavior. So she prepares a substantial gift of food for David and his men. David and 400 armed men are galloping to Nabal's camp when Abigail intercepts them. And she says in verse 24, "She fell at David's feet and said, 'On me alone, my Lord, be the blame. And please let your maidservant speak to you, and listen to the words of your maidservant. Please do not let my Lord pay attention to this worthless man Nabal. For as his name is, so is he. Nabal is his name, and folly is with him.'" Now, notice that she's physically powerless against 400 armed men, but she humbly appeals to David to listen to her proposal. She acknowledges that her husband's a fool, and she asks David to pay no attention to what he says. This sounds like disloyalty, but really she's interceding with David to save Nabal's life. She takes the blame for Nabal's bad behavior. She says in verse 28, "Please forgive the transgression of your maidservant, for the Lord will certainly make my Lord an enduring house, because my Lord," she's talking about David here, "is fighting the battle of the Lord, and evil shall not be found in you all your days. And it shall come about when the Lord shall do for my Lord," that's David, "according to all the good that he has spoken concerning you, and shall appoint you ruler over Israel, that this will not cause grief to my Lord by having avenged himself and shed innocent blood without cause. When the Lord shall deal well with my Lord, then remember your maidservant." Now, Abigail knows that God has promised to make David king over Israel. She is appealing to David to not do anything right now before he's king, in the heat of the moment, that he will regret after he becomes king. Now, Nabal is rude and wicked, and he refuses to share food with people who have earned it by protecting his flocks and herd, but that is not justification for murder. David recognizes that God sent Abigail to him, and he says to her, "Blessed be the God of Israel who sent you this day to meet me. And blessed be your discernment, and blessed be you who have kept me this day from bloodshed and from avenging myself by my own hand." See, the giving and taking of human life is not man's prerogative, it's God's. So is vengeance. God says, "Vengeance is mine, says the Lord, I will repay." And God did. When Abigail later told Nabal how she saved his life, it shocked him so much he had a stroke. And 10 days later, God took his life and he died. You know, there are a number of lessons from the life of Abigail that would stand us in really good stead in this coming year. One, it's always wise to encourage people to honor God and avoid sin. Number two, don't make major decisions when you're angry. Pray, sleep on it, cool off, think about it, and above all else, listen to God and godly counsel, like David did with Abigail. Number 3, don't retaliate. Trust God to enforce justice. His justice is perfect, and ours is, quite frankly, often selfish. Number 4, when you see one of God's children straying from the truth, get involved like Abigail did. Think of the tragedy that she prevented if David in his anger had slaughtered all the males in Nabal's household. Because Nabal himself was evil, there would be a lot of innocent people dead. She saw how a decision today would harm David in the future. That's thinking like God thinks. And that's seeing like God sees and acting like God acts. God looks at us and he sees our future. And he says, if you obey me today, the outcome will be well with you. If you disobey today, the consequences in the future will be disastrous. That's a good lesson to remember as we start this new year. Remember, God designed us to do life together